Hello. Okay, in the last video, I think I had said I would do a different movie this time, and I'm not doing a different movie this time. I decided to do this instead. Because I had alluded to the idea that what if The Breakfast Club had a sequel, and I had also mentioned a meme in which they discussed the musical taste of the characters in The Breakfast Club and how that was way off. So I'll do the music meme uh, after part two of part three, I guess, or however you want to call it. So to reiterate what I was saying in the previous video, if you didn't watch all of the previous video or you skipped it entirely and you're just seeing this, largely my contention with the movie was that the ending sucks, right? Mostly for Brian. Who is he? What, we had other questions. What is Allison and John's relationship backstory? Why would Claire go for him instead of Emilio? Does this make any sense? Are Allison and Brian the more likely couple? And maybe Claire and Andrew. And like I had said here, I'm trying to read really small type at this point. Wherein we stopped short of really explaining why Brian gets shortchanged in some friendships at the end of this movie, because it's really just Claire using him for his intellect because she doesn't want to write her paper. And I didn't get into why does Allison need the makeover to win the jock, but it was implied. Kind of a throwback to Jimmy Stewart and Vertigo, right? We'll discuss that on another day. Shouldn't she have a Cure or Smith album or something in her bag instead of Prince? Which again, we'll be talking about the music in this movie in a minute. I also fail to recount. These are my comments from the other video. Like I said, I also fail to recount several anecdotes that might make this more funny, but still wouldn't add to the premise of the rewrite. So we're not doing a rewrite here today. We're coming from the idea that if The Breakfast Club had a sequel, especially in the era of sequels, how would some of that have played out? And I already talked about John and Claire maybe becoming friends instead of a romantic relationship and how that might work out. I'm not going to explore that as much in this one. I'm just bringing it up because I brought it up before. Would worlds collide or star-crossed lovers be more apt than fish out of water, which I think I said in the video. I'm not sure why this movie was rated R. I saw it when I was like 13 or 14 and knew other kids who saw it already when they were 9 or 10. Fine. Okay, so the main thrust of this, I mostly wanted to talk about the Brian situation. And sorry, I'm just scrolling real quick, and there's a lot more about some of this. Not a lot, but a little bit more on their personalities when we talk about the music, because that was the whole point of the meme, is they thought they could explain their personalities by what groups they would likely enjoy, and then they got a whole bunch of the groups wrong for at least two of the characters. But so what happens in this movie, again, this is mostly just talking about Brian, the sequel. What happens here? He doesn't get the girlfriend. Everybody else gets a girlfriend, right? That's like the whole thing. But he gets new friends. Brian has 4 new friends. Yay. And that, now he doesn't have to feel all depressed and alone, even though he tried to kill himself about his grades. Now he doesn't have to kill himself because now he can hang out with John or even Emilio. John, who has berated him and, like I said at the beginning of the film in the other video, even though Brian is kind of the odd man out character because he doesn't get a romantic relationship, he's kind of the impetus for why a lot of the conflict in the movie happens in the first place, because it starts with John really attacking Brian for his mannerisms and his goofy little quirks or whatever, and Emilio actually defending him. And we don't completely understand why Emilio is defending him at that point. It seems like Emilio just doesn't want to be bothered. And then later we find out Emilio feels bad because he had beaten up Larry Lester, who is actually Brian's friend. But he doesn't even really know that he's Brian's friend. But he feels kind of guilty and conflicted about that. So maybe that's part of the reason why he's kind of stepping up for Brian. Like, hey, man, I'm going to hit you and you're going to hit the floor. And then Judd pulls out the switchblade. And, it all kind of simmers down again for a bit. And by the end of the movie, we still don't really understand why Judd Nelson was bullying Brian, except that it was something to do. There's no real motivation given. Like, we understand why Emilio and Larry Lester had this fight, that it was all inside of his own head, and he just felt like he had to prove himself to his dad or whatever. But Judd Nelson, it's not really he's motivated in the exact same way trying to prove things to his dad, even though, like I said in the last one, his dad abuses him, and that's revealed. And whether or not that really needs to be totally explored in a comedy movie, I don't know. But so how's this going to play out on Monday when, now Brian's friends with Claire, who is kind of indifferent to his existence still. Her character arc hasn't really included him. She's just fallen in love with this scruffy jerk who's not such a big jerk. Hooray. But now Brian is all of a sudden, going to be friends with Larry Lester. How's that conversation going to go? Like, why would you want to be friends with that jerk? No, man, he feels really bad. He's really a nice guy. Yeah, okay, have fun with that. Leave me, like I see an actual broken friendship more happening there for kind of a more superficial friendship that probably won't last very long over here. Like, so, and then the same Larry Lester or somebody else might be like, well, why do you want to be friends with John Bender? The dude's a loser and he never liked you in the first. No, he's really cool. He's dating this hot rich girl now. How does that help you? Is hot rich girl going to hook you up with one of her hot rich girl friends? Doubt it. And again, Emilio, I don't think he has any bad intentions. We see him go through this. He probably goes through the most character arc of all of them in a way, and comes out on the other side kind of redeemed or whatever. But he's now dating Allison, so how much time is he really going to have to spend with Larry Lester and Brian if he wanted to anyway? Oh, well, hey, guys, nice to see you. Allie and I are going to the movie, and, catch you Monday. Like, he's still on the sports team. He's now got a girlfriend. There's no new friendship for Brian there much. They're not going to be mean to him. They're not going to beat up Larry Lester. They're going to leave him alone, but there's no... at the reunion, one of them doesn't even probably show up, and they never even had the discussion. I don't know. So that's my sequel, part of my sequel anyway. You could see how some of this would play out as we followed each individual story, obviously. So like I said, again, if Allison and Brian were having this big... Because Allison, her personality doesn't change at all. Molly puts some mascara on her and takes off her other or lip gloss and takes off her mascara or whatever, and combs her hair. Like, okay, that's pretty cosmetic. That's not some deep inner change. She was just bored, so she showed up, and she enjoyed hanging out with these twerps. And now she has a boyfriend who's a jock, who hopefully will pay more attention to her than he does the wrestling team. I don't know. Whatever. So, yeah, like, I think we would have a more interesting story if we were getting... How is Brian reconciling this friendship with Emilio while navigating a new relationship with the goth girl? She doesn't need a makeover to go with Brian. He just likes her anyway because she's funny or weird and has dandruff. I don't know what to say about that. And meanwhile, Claire, more likely dating Emilio, and juggling a friendship with these two, like I said at the beginning of the other video, that could have almost been a love triangle thing that got explored. But in this sequel, I don't think it would be a love triangle. I think it would be why, her parents kind of approve of Emilio, but they don't understand why these two are now hanging out with this druggy loser. Like wouldn't that be like a lot bigger conflict for obviously this is more of a drama movie than a comedy movie, but Breakfast Club opens up nothing but dramatic stuff as the movie progresses. I mean, like I said, we already talked about switchblades, suicide, drugs. It's funny. So anyway, so that's what I guess what I have on that. I mean, this is already 10 minutes long, and so uh, here we go with part two, the memes about the music. As I had said, obviously the person who made this meme is an idiot who doesn't know that much about music, especially 80s music. Probably someone under 30 going through their parents' CD collection, and they make a whole meme about the Breakfast Club music and don't even mention Simple Minds. Right? That made me laugh. I make myself laugh because I have to. So John Bender. Okay, so I'm going to read off what their meme preferences were, and then read my old reactions from 8 years ago or whenever the hell this meme came out. So for John Bender, they had put The Clash, Joy Division, Violent Femmes, all three bands that Allison would like, not necessarily John. Tubeway Army, I had never heard of them, so I think that comes up in the comments. Black Sabbath, hey, you got one. Ramones and Sex Pistols. Again, Ramones and Sex Pistols, more Allison music. It was kind of always known that like guys were into Sex Pistols, girls were into Susie and the Banshees was kind of the English distinction in those days. I don't know. It's a little bit before my time, but I can definitely speak to who was interested in punk rock, and it wasn't classic rock, hard rock, metal dudes. Not really much at all. Okay. I don't think John Bender was a Ramones fan. I don't think he was much of a Clash fan. He definitely was not a Violent Femmes fan. And Joy Division? No, that's the album, one of the albums that Allison should have had in her bag instead of Prince. Okay, so then someone, a friend of mine, said that Tubeway Army was Gary Newman's original band. Gary Newman's geek rock, so that should be a Brian selection according to their Brian choices. I don't know if this is Tubeway Army's one fan trying to sell downloads or what. So obscure and way before the movie, when these kids would have been 10 and listening to Turning Japanese like everybody else. And then he had omitted a reply, something about how he loved that song or My Sharona or something. Again, I think this is more Emilio and Brian music. I keep saying Emilio instead of Andrew. I think I had put like one of those. I think Vapors had the guitar riff, but Bender's supposed to be the guitar guy. Maybe he has an older brother who's already making listen to Ozzy and Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, not obscure new wave. And it'll be redundant in a minute, but Bender would have been into Van Halen, not Emilio. He wouldn't have had much use for the Ramones or the Sex Pistols. That's revisionist history. None of the metal dudes I knew liked punk. Sometimes they liked the Doors, and they forgot AC/DC, Kiss, and Alice Cooper, maybe not so much. Okay, so then Andrew says Van Halen, again, John Bender band, Journey, Rush, maybe a John Bender band, Def Leppard, not really. Glam rock and jock dudes weren't really glam rock. Jock dudes were more into Oingo Boingo and stuff when I was, I don't know, that I remember. U2, yeah, jock dudes liked U2. Billy Idol, maybe. Bon Jovi, total chick band. Almost no guys liked Bon Jovi. The fact that the Bon Jovi song is the Deadliest Catch anthem is still kind of hurts my head slightly that, Deadliest Catch. Right, anyway. So yes, Emilio would likely be into Billy Idol and maybe Journey, but more likely Springsteen and Huey Lewis and none of that hair band glam metal stuff. I don't see him being into Rush, maybe U2, probably the Police. This was right after Men at Work fell off the... No, this movie came out in 1985, but it was filmed in December of 1984, so keep that in mind in a minute. Because I think they filmed it at a real high school over Christmas vacation. So some of the music that really should have been in the movie wasn't in the movie. If you really want to, dial in those real 80s moments that we'll get to in a minute. His favorite band, like I said, likely would have been Oingo Boingo. That's what the jocks were into. Some of them were into the Cure and the Smiths, but I don't know if that was strictly in California and not Shermer, Illinois. Emilio might be into Dire Straits a bit. Yeah, here in LA we had Rodney on the Rock, so that's why some kind of weird music was getting filtered in, some of the techno stuff and some of the other stuff that you didn't think the popular dudes would like, they still kind of liked, like Depeche Mode and things like that. It's not all Rodney on the Rock, but um, it wasn't all hard rock. Like I said, Bon Jovi was not really the thing here. Def Leppard a little bit, but that was the long-haired dudes, not. See, Allison. So, okay. The Cure, The Smiths, Susie and the Banshees, Kate Bush. Kate Bush, maybe. She's a little obscure. REM. REM was not really big yet. I think they had one kind of breakthrough single around this time. Pixies. Pixies did not exist yet. Pixies came out in like, what, 88 or something? She would never have heard of the Pixies. And then B-52s. Yeah, she probably would have liked the B-52s as kind of a weird fun band. The Pixies might have had something on college radio that she never would have heard of before. I think 1989 was when the Pixies had their first kind of big single. And then they broke up like 10 minutes later or something. The glaring error in the movie is when she pulls out the Prince 1999 double record from her bag when it would have been the Smiths and the Cure, sorry. Or then I had an addendum: Bauhaus, Love and Rockets, Joy Division, all possibles. Yeah, REM was still pretty obscure despite a couple minor hits. Maybe the B-52s, definitely Susie, but probably not that much Kate Bush because she isn't English, and Bush didn't get much airplay here. And I think Running Up the Hill came out in 86, so that was when she kind of achieved the success that someone like Claire would have liked. And same with Psychedelic Furs. This one lists Claire as liking Psychedelic Furs, and I think Allison would have liked Psychedelic Furs more. So Claire, we have Blondie, which was already kind of over. They're a little old already. Psychedelic Furs, Spandau Ballet, yes, but they were kind of more of a one-hit wonder. Bangles, another Rodney on the Rock selection. Bangles were not big yet, I think, for another year, maybe even 2 years when they filmed the movie or whatever. Walk Like an Egyptian, I think, was 86 or 87. So she would not have really cared about the Bangles or heard of them. Go-Go's are already over by this point. Belinda Carlisle hasn't released her solo album until 87, I don't think. She still might like the Go-Go's, but they're not a current band. And then they put Tears for Fears. That's why I put no, because Tears for Fears' second album didn't come out till February. So after this movie was filmed, but at the same time the movie kind of came out, so maybe she would have liked Everybody Wants to Rule the World. But Allison would have been the one, and Brian, who liked the first record. So none of them might have had the second record yet when this movie came out, which of course was the big popular one. And then it says Roxy Music. Maybe, I don't know, I wasn't really familiar with Roxy Music growing up, but maybe Claire would like them. Molly, let's see, it says Claire would probably be into new wave, but probably more dance pop, like Debbie Gibson-y kind of stuff. The Bangles were not big yet when this movie came out. The Go-Go's were already about to break up. Don't know if she would be more into Debbie Gibson or the real heavy dance stuff, like, I don't know, Janis Jackson or En Vogue or whatever. But she would still totally be into Madonna and Michael Jackson and maybe even Prince when she's feeling risque and thinks her parents won't find out that she's listening to all these songs about sex. Yes, I put Tears for Fears, maybe. Blondie, probably yes. Roxy Music, meh. Maybe that one song, but they were more easy listening. Although she does reference Moliere, whom nobody in high school would have heard of, and they play classical music when she does this. So maybe she plays piano and hates pop music, but she still likes Billy Joel and Elton John. Could be, wouldn't rule it out. Especially since Billy Joel was huge at the time. And Elton John had just done his comeback Don't call it a comeback thing or whatever. And maybe Neil Diamond and Barry Manilow and Air Supply might be more her speed. Again, it's kind of hard to say she would be into super heavy dance pop, but don't know that she would only be into easy listening, even though she's this kind of refined sushi with chopsticks girl. And she is the one who would actually be into Journey, I think, out of all of these people. And maybe stuff like Toto and Ambrosia, early 80s soft rock. Don't forget Wham and Culture Club and Kenny Loggins, although Brian and Emilio would like him too, probably. And Phil Collins, but this was before Peter Gabriel kind of was really on everybody's map. So Allison might be the one who likes Peter Gabriel out of all of them at this point when he's doing more stuff like Biko and less stuff like In Your Eyes. Released in, this is from Wikipedia, I guess. Released in May 86 and reached #1 in the UK and #2 in the US. Remains Gabriel's best-selling album. So yeah, So was not around yet when this movie came out. Missed it by that much. Okay, so Brian, we have Talking Heads, Hall & Oates, Depeche Mode, again an Allison selection more. Haircut 100, a one-hit wonder, but a good tune or a good album, I guess. Television, I don't see that. New Order, don't really see that. That's, again, more Allison, maybe Claire. And the Cars, yes, definitely the Cars, but also Andrew would love the Cars. And then I put possibly also In Excess for, Brian, maybe Claire. For Brian, they could have just saved time and just put New Wave. And they skipped Flock of Seagulls to put in Joy Division. Well, that wasn't under Brian, but in general. Lost my place here. So yes, Brian has never heard of Joy Division until his friend in college sends him a letter with lyrics a few years later, and then he still never buys any of their records because he thinks the singer is lousy and can barely tolerate the Smiths half the time for the same reason. Brian may have a photo of Hall & Oates in his wallet for the calendar from their Rock and Soul Hits tape, and Claire and even Andrew would love them as well. He loves the Cars, Depeche Mode, not so much. OMD. Think OMD. This pathetic heartbreak music that Brian loves, likes, loves, obsesses over. Wishes would his life have this romantic story to go with these songs. Like I said, this movie needs a partial rewrite anyway before we even do a sequel. But Brian probably also likes Bryan Adams and Billy Joel and Simon and Garfunkel, etc. And Bryan Adams would have been big with both Claire and Andrew, I think. Brian likes Talking Heads and Devo and XTC and other nerdy stuff, including Oingo Boingo, but he only collects tapes of Talking Heads and Boingo a bit. And this is after Rick Springfield and Men at Work and all the Van Halens before Van Hagar. He probably listens to classical music more than Claire. So there's another odd moment. Actually, he can only wish, though, that he could play an instrument. In the movie, Bender supposedly maybe plays guitar. We don't know. He's probably not as good at it as his friends think he is or something because he never gets past Deep Purple and can't play Maiden or Metallica. Brian thinks television is annoying when he finally hears them and from the wrong age group for this film. Same as some other new wave stuff like Joy Division. Brian and Claire like General Public and stuff. Maybe Paul Weller. The Jam, Style Council, Sting's Dream of the Two Blue Turtles, but that doesn't come out until the following year, I think. Another near miss. And don't forget Weird Al Yankovic. Yeah, I'm getting close to running out of time on this video, but I think I can squeeze this in if I read it kind of fast. Brian isn't into New Order. Just because he's geeky and they don't give him the goth chick, he would have likely tried to pair with after striking out with one of Molly's rich, pretty friends or whatever. That doesn't mean he's gay. He wouldn't have tried to change her so much like Molly's makeover, but he would have been disappointed later with her behavior or whatever if they did go out. But more likely, she sleeps with John instead of him, not Emilio. I don't know what I was thinking here. Maybe that she would have an affair. Oh, I think I meant Allison there. Let's see. Judd still uses. Oh, this is from that other meme, I think. Yeah. Okay, so I got this. That should have gone in the beginning, toward the end here. Anyway, sorry. Well, Easter egg. John still uses her and treats her like a one-night stand because he has those other gals on the back burner that he just considers, because one of them is really technically his girlfriend anyway, and she whines about it to Brian endlessly at Johnny's graduation party, but never sleeps with him. And they misspelled Spandau on the meme too. So if you can make sense of what I was trying to say there without me having to re-explain it all, because I'm not going to have time to post this whole video. They would all love the Thomason twins except for John Bender. I was meaning to point out that I liked Def Leppard a bit for a few songs, but I never liked Bon Jovi. I liked Billy Squier. There was a long video about Billy Squier's career getting torpedoed by his videos and things. Let's see, this movie came out in 85, so U2 was pretty big from Pride in the Name of Love, but Joshua Tree was also not until 87, so they weren't really megastars yet. So Molly, Claire might still not have liked, or Andrew, whoever, still might not have cared about U2 yet. And I see. And I think Simple Minds, Don't You Forget About Me, that song could be Molly, but overall I think the band would be Brian in theme. Okay, so comment or question.